I'm going to remember this time. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us in this ninth webinar in our Habitat Illinois webinar series for 2020-2021. As you know, we pivoted last year. I hate that word, but I use it all the time. From a 2-day conference to a 10-month webinar series. And so this is month 9. Next month will be our final session in this webinar series. We'll be joined by Ria Tricci from Habitat for Humanity International. She's one of our operational development consultants for faith relations. We saved Ria for the end because she has a powerful, powerful message, and we are excited to have her join us next month. A couple of housekeeping things. First and foremost, we can't see you. You can see us, but we can't see you. So utilize both the chat and the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. Any questions you have for me or for Angie throughout the course of this training, please utilize the chat or the Q&A. You can also raise your hand. Once you raise your hand, I'll know that you want me to take you off of mute so that you can ask a live question. So you are welcome to do that as well. So those are kind of the 3 things you can do there along the bottom of your screen: Q&A, chat, and raise your hand. I'll monitor all of those, try to help answer questions as they come up. Otherwise, we'll wait till the end of the presentation for Angie to answer questions. Speaking of Angie, this is my dear friend, Angie Schmidt, from fellow Rockfordian, who I've worked with for the last, probably 5 years or so. In conjunction with the Northern Illinois Center for Nonprofit Excellence, Angie and I have worked on lots of community things together, and she is really just a gem of a human being, but also really skilled and talented as it relates to board engagement. And so we are unbelievably grateful to have her here today. A tidbit, her sister is actually the board president for the Decatur affiliate. So she knows Habitat, but she also knows board engagement. So I'm going to turn it over to Angie, who's going to talk with us today about best practices in board engagement. She's got a lot of really cool resources that we're gonna be able to see today. So Angie, thanks for being here, and thanks for joining us on this blistery afternoon.
Terrific. Hi, welcome everyone. Just a note, the tornado siren just went off in the community here. So there may be a moment that I have to log out, but so far I think we're good. So just be aware that if I suddenly am running away, it's because the tornado is happening and I need to leave the room. So Sherry, no worries, but that's the truth. So these are the topics I'm going to cover. I think the best way to engage a board is to know what they're supposed to be doing. At the end, I'll also talk about what the difference between the chair of the board and the executive director's responsibilities are. But again, I'm going to start with responsibilities of the board, talk about some legal duties. I think a lot of people join boards not knowing that they actually have some legal responsibilities, suggestions for how you could do some training in your future with your board, other ways that you can improve engagement with them, and then some resources at the end. So I didn't notice this until I was in the middle of making this presentation, but there's kind of an anagram for the word board here. I divide the responsibilities of a board up into 5 broad categories. The first one being determining the direction. So understanding your mission, being able to say your mission, helping review the mission statement should be part of what a board does probably every year. Thinking about what is our mission? Does it align with what we're doing? And if it doesn't align, we need to either change our mission or change what we're doing. So part of determining the direction is setting strategy, doing a strategic plan or creating action steps, creating a vision somewhere out in the future, and creating the steps to get there. A challenge I think a lot of boards have is board sets the mission, usually with the help of staff and executive director. If you don't set it as a team, you could have the challenge of we've set something and they don't want to do it. So when you are doing mission development, when you are doing strategic planning, you should be doing it as a team. Then it is the board's job to hand it off to the executive director and the staff to actually implement. If that's something your board doesn't understand, it is an important conversation to have. One of the challenges I think with boards is that there are stages of board development. Sometimes there is no staff and the board is used to doing all the work, so there's nobody to hand it off to. Then they grow enough that they hire an executive director or hire a team, but they're still used to doing all the work. So another thing to have conversation around is what stage are we in as a board? Number two on the things the board is responsible for is resource development. Resource development means two different things. So I'm apparently going to do a lot with my hands today. So it means human resource development. So you're hiring an executive director, you're evaluating an executive director. So I want you to give yourself a gold star if sometime in the last 12 months you've actually done an evaluation of your executive director, because a lot of people skip that step. The other resource is financial. Board is responsible for financial resource development. That does mean that your board should do some fundraising. If your board is not engaged in fundraising, they aren't doing part of their responsibility. And I would say that you should have as part of something that the board member signs when they join is that they will give. Whether they give $5 or $5,000 or $500,000, amen. But every board member should give. You should have 100% giving. So the board helps with resource development. The board helps with oversight. And by oversight, I mean oversight of everything. So it's their responsibility to make sure that you have funds, that you're using your funds well, that they are evaluating the executive director and hiring the executive director, that your programs and services meet your mission. It isn't their job to be in all the business, but it is their job to understand that you are doing some measurement of outcomes, that you have looked at your programs and services regarding their return on investment, how much staff time it takes, whether it's worth your time and energy. And the board gets to have an opinion about these make sense for us and these don't. They are also responsible for all the finances, not necessarily doing it, but they hold some legal responsibility for making sure that you are a fiscally sound, ethically operating organization. One of the things boards often forget to do is while they're doing all the work of being a board, they should also create a plan for continuing to grow and develop as a board. One of the things I have always said is you should always recruit your replacement at least a year before you leave your board. Because I'm going to say boards are sticky, because there are a bunch of different gifts and talents you need, and you want all of them on the board, all those gifts and talents. And so everyone has a strength that they bring. With that, it means they kind of want everybody else to have that strength too. So if I, for example, am very good at Robert's Rules of Order, which by the way, I'm not, I want everybody else to know the rules too. And so I keep wanting there to be training about what we should be doing regarding how our meeting should run. But in reality, we don't all need to know all the specifics. We need one or two people on the board with that talent to keep us in check. We need one or two people on the board with really good financial talents to keep that in check. We all need to trust that person and learn from that person, but I don't need to know everything really well. I need to know that there are people on the board who can do that, and that we are recruiting the next person in line. So one of the things that I think boards often miss is when they get a new person, when they do recruit another person, how to mentor them, how to orient them to being on the board, what are the expectations of being on the board, and how to help continue to train each other and develop better as a board. Then the last thing I think is a responsibility of the board is to figure out how to be an ambassador for your organization. If everyone on your board can't do an amazing 30-second elevator speech about your organization, maybe that's something you could help them with. So I'm going to do my 30-second elevator speech. So I'm on the board of Girl Scouts of Northern Illinois. And I was a Girl Scout for my entire school age years, both grade school and high school. And it was a very important girl only organization for me, where I learned a lot of leadership skills. And I like continuing to be a part of an organization that builds girls of courage, confidence, and character. I use that speech when I'm asking people for money. I use that speech when I ask people if they want to rappel off a building with me. I use that speech when I ask somebody if they want to be a Girl Scout leader, because I talk about Girl Scouts all the time, because I joined the board because I'm passionate about it. I know what it means to me. It's easy for me to just roll stuff about it off my tongue. And if your board members can't all do that, one of the ways you could help them is by helping them create their own 30-second elevator speech. I also think boards should advocate. So my understanding is Habitat for Humanity wants to make sure that everyone has a safe and affordable place to live. And that should be something we are fighting for locally, within our state, and nationally, and maybe internationally. And if there are ways that you can help your board advocate, that would be amazing. So those are the key responsibilities of a board. They actually have legal responsibilities too. And I think a ton of people don't know that there are laws behind being on a board. I love the language around this, because the words care, loyalty, and obedience are words we kind of know and could embrace and have a feeling for. I actually copied from Board Source a language around it. If you don't know the organization Board Source, I would write that one down. Boardsource.org has lots of, it's a very commonly cited organization. They have lots of different things that resources that are available for boards, and that's something you could point your board to, because one of the things that happens is board members change. So you get everybody trained and then 3 of them leave, or the chair leaves and the new chair isn't as good as the one before, or isn't as, let me put that more nicely, isn't as skilled. They haven't learned, they just haven't developed enough as a board chairman to be able to do all the things that your last person did. You haven't built a good enough relationship yet. So I would suggest that Board Source be one of the resources you send them to. While I was jibber jabbering, I imagine several of you have read this, but I want to read it because I think it's really important. And I have to read from my paper because I can't see the whole screen. So, duty of care. Each board member has a legal responsibility to participate actively in making decisions on behalf of the organization and to exercise his or her best judgment while doing so. The way I like to describe this is you care enough about the organization to have read the material ahead of time. You care about the organization enough to ask a question that you think might be embarrassing, but you need to know the answer to. You care enough about the organization that you will vote responsibly, that you will attend the meetings. You care. I care enough about the organization that I'm on the board for that I chose to only be on one board, so that all my energy goes to that board. So, duty of care, a legal responsibility. A second legal responsibility is duty of loyalty. So this one, I think, is where you know that you have a conflict of interest statement that everybody has signed. The idea behind it is when I'm in the room as a board member for this organization's needs come first. So that's what it says at the bottom. This organization's needs come first. So if voting this way is going to help my company, I need to make sure I'm voting for the organization that I am representing as part of the board, not my family's company, not me, not, I think this would be good for my community. I need to be all about this organization. If I can't separate for some reason, I need to recuse myself from that vote. And if I really want to dot my I's and cross my T's, I ask the secretary to note in the minutes that I have recused myself from this vote because it would be a conflict of interest for me. So we've got, I care enough to do the things that will be good for the organization. I'm loyal enough to this organization that I will put its needs first in front of anything else when I'm in the room voting and acting as a board member. And the last one, the duty of obedience, is about knowing the rules and regulations that we have to comply with Habitat. You guys got a bajillion, so that I bear the responsibility. I bear the responsibility for ensuring that the organization complies with any standards, any policies we set, that we follow our mission, that we're doing everything we need to with the money, that we're following, that we're filing 990s if we need to. Now, I'm going to go back to every board member has their gifts and talents, and not every board member is going to know all the federal and state laws, all the codes that you have to comply with. So part of being a board member is knowing that you do have someone on staff that can do that you do have someone on the board that knows things, that you have some oversight responsibility to make sure that everything you guys are doing is within the laws and policies and everything that impact your organization. Those are three pretty big responsibilities. So most organizations have, and I would hope all, but most organizations have directors and operators insurance. One of the things that might be interesting, a 15-minute presentation at the beginning of a board session someday, is this is what our directors and operators insurance is. Maybe you invite the person who sold it to you to talk about what it is, why you carry it, what is covered, what is not covered. That's a great 15 minutes at the beginning. It helps the board feel more engaged with, this is a legal responsibility. But it also is a way that a touch point for them to understand part of your world is to make sure that you're following all kinds of crazy standards and rules and policies, and that they understand how difficult your job can be. So far we've done the 5 responsibilities of the board and the 3 legal duties of a board. So and then I mentioned maybe a good idea would be to have a 15-minute session on directors and operators insurance. One of the ways that would be a lovely way to engage your board better is to be a part of a training series with them. Spend some time every year reviewing your mission. That can be a 1-hour time that the board and the staff gets together and talks about, this is what we do and this is why we do it. The board and staff could be together creating a vision. Where do we want to be a year from now? Where do we want to be 2 years from now? Different from the standard meeting or in addition to the standard meeting. One of the things that I think is always fun is to have a staff member come and say, here's a great story. Here's a story about a homeowner that I want you guys all to know. Here's a story about something that happened on a work site last week. So whether a staff member presents, here's a new model of things we're going to do. We want to start building ramps. We get all kinds of requests for building ramps, and we want to start to look at that. Is there anybody who wants to join a staff board committee to look at how that might work together? I think one of the things that may not have to do with executive directors much, but I think it really actually does, everything does, right? Reviewing the bylaws. I read the bylaws for Girl Scouts of Northern Illinois when I joined, and recently I asked a question in a meeting and someone said, that's in the bylaws. And I was asking a question about the bylaws, and they sent me the link again to remind me how to get access to them, which I thought was perfect. That was a perfect response. And it was a reminder that even though I read the bylaws 5 years ago, I haven't looked at them. So as a committee reviews them, could they give a brief update? These are the highlights. These are things that would be interesting for you to really have in your mind. These are the 6 pages, if I only had 6 minutes, that I would suggest you read right now. And these are other pages you could read at your leisure. One of the things that I think also would be interesting for the board to do, and I think would be great for staff to be engaged in, is how do you understand the financial statement? We get them, we vote on them. It doesn't mean that everybody knows what they mean. And so to do 15 minutes once a year of this is how we present the financial statement and this is what it means. I could go on forever about ideas of what you could do with board training. And again, some of them being having a good conversation with your chair to talk about, is this something we want staff and the board to do together? Is this something we want the staff to present? Is this something we want an outsider to present? Under the understanding the financial statements would be a great thing for your treasurer to present. I think often it falls too heavily on the executive director to be the person who knows. And I think it should, the transitioning it to whichever board member is responsible for that is a really key part of finances. So I made a little list on the next one about how to better engage your board. One of the things that I'm going to say as a board member that I love hearing about is programming that's happening. And again, it only needs to be 10 minutes. Somebody comes in and tells me, we're starting a build at this site. These are the first 3 organizations who have volunteered to give us a Saturday. I want you guys to know for a couple reasons. One, because this is where we're going next, and you should already know it because it should be in our strategic plan. But also because if, I'm just going to make up 3 names now. If, say, the Girl Scouts are coming one day for a build, I was part of a build here in Rockford that was a woman's build that I think Lowe's had a strong representation at, and then maybe a church group is coming. Now, as a board member, I know that, and a great way I can say thank you is to share a picture on my Facebook page and say, very excited that the team at Lowe's Rockford is participating in our build this week. That's a way for me to help steward future donors. And I don't know how to do that. And I don't know who to say thank you to if you haven't told me. So recently I rappelled off a building for Girl Scouts. We had several sponsors, and I asked the fund development officer to send me a list of all the sponsors, because I would like to highlight them a number of times during the next year on my LinkedIn page and on my Facebook page to say thank you. So every time I post a picture of me rappelling, I'm going to say, and I want to thank Magpie for providing all the lunches. It's a little thing I can do, but it continues to steward that relationship, helps them be donors in the future, says that we noticed, but I don't know to do that if somebody didn't give me the names. And I'm going to tell you, the only reason I got the names is because I asked for them. But I'm going to jump now to number 3. I'll get back to number 2 in a minute. Have specific asks. If somebody had sent out something to the whole board saying, these were our sponsors, if you get a chance to say thank you, that would be wonderful. So that would be a very specific ask for the board. Boards often don't know what to do with themselves, truthfully. They're like, I come, I vote, I'm trying to be involved, but I don't know what that means. I showed up for one build, but building isn't my thing, but I still want to be part of this board. So when you can have a specific ask. So I asked, as part of that fundraiser that we did, I was on the fundraising committee for rappelling off the building. I asked every board member to do something. And I gave them a giant list, pick one. And maybe because I was a board member, they responded and everybody did something. But I had a very specific set of asks. On a different note, I get a bajillion emails from the executive director. A bajillion. And I know she's trying to keep me informed, and I love that. But I don't read my emails from her every day. I just don't. I batch them and I read them all at one time. When she wants to know if I'm coming to something tomorrow and I don't read it till Sunday, we had a communication flaw. So one of the things she has started doing is saying, this needs action right now. And so she puts action needed in the subject line. Anything that says action needed, I read right away. Otherwise, I save them. That's a specific ask, a specific invitation. Carrie, I want to ask you a specific question. I have 2:28 on my clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I only have 3 minutes left.
No, keep going. Keep going.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things, board members want specific asks. They want to know whether this is going to take them 3 months or whether you're asking them to be involved in the next 6 years. And they're going to need help learning how to be an ambassador for your organization. So one of the things I said at the beginning is figure out how you can help them learn a 30-second elevator speech. Okay, this is my last slide, so we're good. So 3 resources that I really want to point you to, and I would suggest that, so the first one is Nonprofit Oregon, and you can just Google Nonprofit Oregon, or Carrie can share that link with you. They have a ton of resources. They've curated a set of resources and have them available. Joan Geary is a former executive director, and now she is a consultant for executive directors and nonprofits generally. She's got a podcast. I would suggest that any board member, any executive director would not be wasting their time to listen to a podcast or two. One of the things she talks about is if your executive director and your chair aren't operating like twin engines on a twin engine jet, you're not going to move your organization forward well. So figuring out how to work as a twin engine jet is really important for everyone. And then I mentioned BoardSource earlier. And then I want to, before I turn it over to Carrie, I do want to say, and I think she's probably put something in the chat for you. One of the things Joan Geary has is this really cool description of what the difference between the executive director and the board chairs. Oh, I didn't share it yet, did I?
Yeah, you need to share.
Yeah. Sorry. I can tell it went up there, but so sorry about this. I know I'm running late. So she's got this handout. It's downloadable. I think Sherry's going to put it, Carrie's going to put it in the, I have a sister named Carrie and a sister named Sherry, and it's kind of funny. So this is a handout that just talks about the difference between what an executive director should be doing and what the board chair should be doing. And I think it's worth having the conversation together about whether that fits for you guys, how that's working out. And I think that's a great, like, let's go to coffee. I got this cool handout at this. So you can totally blame it on me. I got this cool handout on this thing I went to the other day. And I think let's run through it and see if we are aligning with what it is suggested. So it talks about how to supervise staff, how to develop strategy. It's down below, it's got budget and building the board. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over to Carrie in case we have questions. And I know I'm running a little bit long.
You're totally fine. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So just to answer a couple of like the general questions I saw, we will, I will grab Angie's slide deck from her. And we will put this recording on the Habitat Illinois website. So if you just go to habitatillinois.org and click on where it says webinars, scroll down to the July one, and then we'll have both the recording and the slide deck on there so that you'll be able to see that. I dropped in the chat the Nonprofit Oregon link, Joan Geary, and then the link to the actual blog post about the responsibility differences between the executive director and the board of directors. So, all right. So thank you, Angie. Thank you. Thank you. What a fantastic conversation. I see lots of thank yous and great presentations popping up. Quite a few thank yous. I don't see any questions yet, though. Does anybody have any questions for Angie? I put in the chat box when Angie first brought up BoardSource. For those of you who don't know, Habitat for Humanity has a paid subscription to BoardSource for all of our affiliates. So if you go onto My Habitat, and you can go into the Management and Operations Expertise Hub, go into Board Engagement, and there you will be able to access everything that BoardSource has to offer. Habitat International pays for that subscription on our behalf, so we have access to that through My Habitat. Okay, so Angie, I do have a couple of questions, so I'm excited. How do boards ensure that they're getting a sound sense of their organization when most of their info is filtered through their executive director?
That's a terrific question. And I think the easiest way to do that is to be engaged. So if you're only getting information about the organization because somebody is telling you about it, it means you haven't been at enough stuff. So if you are at the fundraiser, if you are at the a build occasionally, if you have ways to engage with the organization and the work it does, you know what's going on. So that's on you if you are a board member who doesn't know what's going on at the organization.
Great answer. All right, Glaisa, I love this question. Glaisa's my vice chair, Angie.
Okay.
Any suggestions for engaging board members who traditionally have opted out of training / engagement opportunities?
I'm going to say, don't be afraid to fire somebody. I know that that's a aggressive response, but I think two things should happen. I think there should be somebody on the board, and it's usually the chair, who has conversations with people who aren't engaging. Is this still a good fit for you? Do you want to continue to be a part of the board? I'm noticing that you haven't been here as often. Has something changed in your life that is making this more difficult? So I think one of the things to do is to ask the person, give them a chance to give them a chance to leave. Because one of the worst ways one of the easiest ways to ruin a board is to make not being engaged acceptable. And one of the best ways to engage the people who are still there is to get rid of the dead weight. And I know that sounds terrible, but an honest, open conversation, usually with the board chair, helps somebody who really needs to leave think about whether it's time for them to leave or re-engage. So I would start with an honest conversation, and it might end with, oh, you're right, I need to leave. Or it might end with, if you can't be engaged, you're going to need to step down.
Good answer. Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody? You can raise your hand. A little icon at the bottom of the screen. You can put something in the chat. Lots of great presentations in the chat feature, Angie. Everyone seems to have enjoyed the conversation. So a few plugs. Habitat International has a tremendous amount of resources on our My Habitat website. The Management and Operations Expertise Hub is probably the best place for you to go as it relates to board engagement. Specific resources as it relates to recruitment, board training and orientation, job descriptions, all of those kinds of things. So plenty of resources on My Habitat. Angie's a consultant. So if you are interested in having some further conversations with Angie to do strategic planning potentially with your board, any of those kind of training sessions that she talked about, you are welcome to borrow her from me. I'm kidding. I don't own her. But she's a fantastic resource, a great sounding board. I have lots of conversations with Angie. So anybody who is interested in contacting Angie, we will provide her contact information to you so that you have that. Two real quick things. Next month, the first Wednesday of August, we'll welcome Ria Tricci from Habitat International to talk about faith relations. Really, this conversation is about getting back to our roots. Like, how do we become the habitat of the past? How do we re-engage faith-based communities, especially in times of crisis? So Ria will join us for our last of the webinar series. And then we are super excited today to announce that our full face-to-face 2-day 2021 Habitat Illinois conference will take place on November 15th and 16th. So Monday and Tuesday, November 15th and 16th in Bloomington, Illinois, at the Marriott we were at in 2019. So we're back to face-to-face. We have 6 different tracks this year that we're going to be doing. Lots of really great guest speakers. Natasha Reed-Rice will be joining us from Habitat International. So a lot of really exciting things going into the planning of that conference. So please save the date. You'll be getting some information about that conference here in the coming days. And then the last thing I want to remind you about is next Thursday, July 15th, is the Habitat Illinois Building Impact webinar. So any of you who are accessing HIBI through the Illinois Housing Development Authority, so you are applying for down payment assistance on behalf of your home buyers through the Habitat Illinois Building Impact Grant. So just as a reminder, that's a $15,000 to $20,000 down payment grant that you have access to. only Habitat affiliates in Illinois can access these funds. So it's set aside money from IDA specifically for Habitat home buyers. And so there's a strict process to get that money, but it's a $15,000 to $20,000 direct cash payment to your affiliate for each home buyer that you close on that qualifies. So there's a training next Thursday, the 15th. I'm going to look at my calendar because I think it's at 10 o'clock, but I don't remember. Next Thursday at 10 a.m. There's a webinar with Jordan, the grant manager from Northern Fox Valley, and Barb Beckman, the executive director of Northern Fox Valley, who helped manage that grant process for us. So anybody who is has accessed those funds or is interested in accessing those funds, someone from your affiliate must join us for that conversation next Thursday, July 15th at 10 a.m. If you need that webinar link or that Zoom link, please just shoot me an email, Carrie Acevedo at rockfordhabitat.org, and I'll send that out to you so that you can join. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Jesse, I will absolutely send the invitation to that webinar. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Angie, for your time. Thank you for your expertise. I know that 20 minutes, 30 minutes is really just such a snippet of conversation. But thank you for dropping such great golden nuggets all over us today. Lots of things to think about and lots of things to continue to work on for our board. So thank you for your time and your effort in putting together a great presentation.
It was great to be here. It's a great organization.
Thanks. We think so too. All right, friends, just as a reminder, the PowerPoint and the recording will be up on the Habitat Illinois website later this week. And so if I don't talk to you between now and then, I will see you on the first Wednesday of August. Thanks much.